You're listening to Around the Galaxy.
Welcome to Around the Galaxy, the Star Wars fan talk show. I am one of your hosts, Pete Fletzer, and along with my co-host, Nick Mielke, we take you on a journey meeting the people behind the Star Wars fandom, capturing that magic moment when Star Wars fans meet. Now, you know the drill. Typically, we embark on 1 hour-long journeys, peeling back the layers of the Star Wars fandom with our amazing guests. But this episode is from Force Connect, our weekly segment on our show ATGLive, where we get together on Thursday nights on our YouTube channel, and you can join us there. In these captivating 20 to 25-minute conversations, we explore the galaxy's wonders with some of the most intriguing personalities around. And folks, this week's guest is sure to leave you wanting more. Joining us today is none other than Tommy Stella, a comic book writer and internet sensation hailing from the bustling streets of New York City. Tommy's tales are a blend of the surreal and the fantastical, crafting characters and narratives that resonate deeply with his fans. From his works like The Days at the End and Mustn't Tell, Tommy's creative genius knows no bounds. And speaking of Mustn't Tell, he's currently running a Kickstarter campaign for that multi-part comic, so please make sure to check that out and show your support. Tommy's not just any comic book aficionado, though. No. He's a die-hard fan of those obscure Star Wars characters, the ones that we lovingly refer to as Glup Shittos. So make sure to check that out. Remember to subscribe and hit that notification bell so we never miss you on one of our shows sharing the Star Wars magic on Around the Galaxy. And don't forget to join us live every Thursday night for ATGLive, where we cover all the latest Star Wars news and feature special guests like Tommy Stella. And this Thursday, we're joined by Clayton Sandell and S.T. Bendy, talking about their brand new Return of the Jedi visual archive book. You are not going to want to miss that. Connect with us on our website, theSSWnetwork.com, and follow us on all your social media channels at theSSWnetwork.com. You can also join us as a patron for as little as $3 a month. You'll get free swag and discounts on our merch, plus be able to join us when we do our in-depth Star Wars interviews with celebrities on Around the Galaxy. And now, without further ado, our conversation with Tommy Stella. Tommy!
There
Hello.
he is.
Hi. Can you hear me? Is this working?
Yes, we can hear you.
I've been watching you guys, for 30 minutes now, and it feels so weird to be watching a podcast, and then all of a sudden you're like in a podcast. I got so comfortable just watching.
You're like, this is fun. I'll just watch this for... Oh, shit, I got to talk.
Oh, wait, I'm on now.
They're going to ask me stuff now. Gosh.
Yeah, all right.
Yep.
Well, Tommy, for those that don't know who you are, what you do, and why you're here, maybe give us a little bit of your background and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so as they said, I'm an internet sensation, which is a terrifying thing to live up to. I think I'm an internet worker, an internet guy. Internet nuisance is probably the best way to say it. But I write comics. I tweet things that people like. I just kind of make things exist in the world, not the real world, but like in the fake world in my head, But yeah, and I like Star Wars a lot. I'm adjacent to the franchise. A lot of people know me from that, from my nonsense, from meeting me at Celebration, which was always fun. But yeah, right now I'm mainly focused on writing comic books. That's hopefully what people will know me as.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, and like I said, we have said, I call you an internet sensation because you're one of those fun people that like, you're engaging with other people and it's funny. You're engaging with your own thoughts and they're funny. They're witty. Like I have another podcast, is a sports podcast that I've listened to for almost 25 years now. And, smart and funny is his thing. He's like, if you're smart and funny, like that gets the job done. And I feel like that's what I relate to. And when I see that in your tweets, and so, followed you years ago and all that kind of stuff. But you are a Star Wars fan. So I want to do this for a minute. Take us back to the beginning. Where did you first encounter Star Wars? How did it start for you? What's your origin story?
So Phantom Menace came out when I was, I think, 5 or 6.
Okay.
And I was just the pure victim of that marketing campaign. When you go to the toy store when you're a little kid and you just see like...
And let's be honest, it was comprehensive. It was a full marketing campaign.
Yeah, like I can still remember like the layout of the toy aisle for Phantom Menace, and it was like my first memory that I have. Like that's how I know George like sent people in or whatever to like put everything specifically where he wanted it, whatever. But it worked. I think I played with the toys way more than I even watched the movie. I was just like, they were like, here's a sword, you can hit your friends with this, and we're not gonna be mad at you. Just don't hit them too hard. Like find that nice gentle amount to hit them with, and you'll be fine. You're playing the movie. So I think that was the initial start, was like buying a lightsaber. And then from there, the Phantom Menace came out, and 6-year-old me really loved the trade dispute talk. That was a lot of fun. They got a lot going here. This is really cool. I think once the pod race scene hit, I remember being a kid, I think I like gained sentience during the pod racing scene.
There was a moment there where I was like, maybe he really did like the politics when he was 5 years old.
No, I didn't even. I remember like years later when I was like probably like 10 or 12, people joking about the trade and the politics and all that. I was like, that wasn't in the movie. What are you talking about? They were killing each other. They had the pod racer. That's what the movie was about,
That's cool. Cool. So you're a writer specifically of comics. But tell us a little bit about how Star Wars, again, so it's interesting because Phantom Menace is getting the big re-release for the 25th anniversary. But how did the Phantom Menace kind of influence what you're doing and what sort of did it drive you? The question kind of we ask a lot of our guests is, did Star Wars influence you to go to where you did, and what was the path? Because sometimes it's not like, well, I saw Star Wars, I decided to be a writer. It's I saw Star Wars, I got into this, then I did that, and then I did this, and hey, I'm back to Star Wars. So what's that story look like? Yeah,
I mean, I think I would credit like Phantom Menace with kind of like exploding my imagination, which directly led into this. That's why I first learned what Star Wars was during that whole push. And then my family went to Disney World like all the time. So then I would go there and I would experience it in that kind of way. And I think with like Star Tours, which is the Star Tours, like being fully surrounded by this story and by like this world that I just learned about. I think specifically like Star Tours like felt a little bit more concrete than a lot of the other rides that were there. Like you were really fully encapsulated in it. I just like made me think like, I was like, oh, I want this forever. Like what else is there for this? And then I was like, oh, there's 3 other movies. That's cool. Let me go watch those. And I think that desire for like escapism and for all these fictional stories led into my love for just creativity and just wanting to make things. It was never necessarily even about storytelling. It was just about like letting people get lost in a different world for a little bit. And I think I can thank the Toys R Us Phantom Menace aisle for that one.
and so if you were given the chance, if you could write a Star Wars story, what era would you write it in, and what kind of story would you want to tell?
I mean, like part of me wants to do something small just because I think with the smaller characters you get a little bit more freedom. Like I obviously I want to say like Droopy McCool right now because that's my whole thing. But really just like any character that I can like take on some kind of journey that means something. So I don't necessarily need to write like a Han Solo or a Luke Skywalker. I would just want to write someone who, you get to play with their action figure a little bit more. Maybe it doesn't need to go back in the box afterwards. It could be left in the sandbox or something like that. But I'm still going to say Droopy McCool. We're going to go with that.
You are, you're a love of funny side characters, Droopy McCool, all the other ones. The question I wrote, and this is my own personal agenda, I was going to say, some people call them a Glup Shitto. I was going to say, who is the best one and why is it Goal, the licking Jedi monster from Return of the Jedi that's on the ceiling of Jabba's palace? So if we take Droopy off the table, who are your other favorite weird somebody else's in Star Wars?
It's a shame we have to take Droopy off the table, but I think
what's he doing on the table in the first place? I think is a better question.
That's right.
He's on the table. He's playing music. He's doing a little solo. I think like a Nubs is obviously a good one. That's the one I don't know how I got associated with Nubs, but I am. That just kind of happened. I like another, like if I had a second option of like what to write for Star Wars, actually, this isn't just like a little bit, like I do like Star Tours a lot. I think a comic series for that would be really cool. So obviously, like Captain Rex would be like the main focus of it in some way, shape, or form. But I always just love those like side Star Wars things, like the little like I'm a victim of marketing, so like anytime they do like a video game or just a side story, like it's all I care about. I think like a Star Tours comic series would be really cool to do, with Rex in charge. So yeah, I think Rex is actually my different answer.
I like that, and I love Star Tours. I'm sorry, Pete.
Yeah, that's fine.
But yeah, that's another one of those ones that, like, as a kid who grew up in the 80s and, you know, when Star Tours came out in the late 80s, early 90s and became a thing, like, even now, I spend way too much time on eBay in my own Brandon Winerdy looking at all the old, you know, Star Tours merchandise and posters and things that I'm going, I need that in my life, but I can't make unsound financial decisions in order to claim them.
No, you can. It's fine.
That's what being a Star Wars fan is all about.
Kids don't need food. It's fine.
But you know, it's interesting because I wonder if with all the Star Wars, and this, you know, on the one hand, it's fantastic and amazing and wild that between comic books and novels and television shows, we have backstories and on all kinds of characters. But, you know, between Phantom Menace and the original trilogy, and of course the prequel trilogy, there was always all these characters that we got to love and create our own stories for them. And I wonder if that's still a thing, if that's still, you know, because there are so many stories out there being told. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole from a certain point of view kind of like started to tackle that, but I think we can go deeper. I think we got to go from like an even more certain point of view. I've always like when I remember learning that, you know, there are the characters and then there's the characters behind them, and like I think a bit of like Star Wars trivia for like the common person back in the day was like every single one of them has a name and every single one of them has a backstory. They went crazy with that. Like, whoa, that's so wild. Like I think that's probably the best part about it, and I think it'd be really cool to just give every single one of them like a little bit more than just an encyclopedia page. I just think there's so many like little nifty details that you can kind of just add on to, and you know, like where the cool thing about Star Wars is that it mirrors our own world so much, and just like specifically like hopes, dreams, expectations, you know, all that. And I think giving those to the people who aren't saving the galaxy, just the everyday people in the background, is like a really cool opportunity to show that, you know, even if you're not blowing up the Death Star, maybe you're just going to work, you can still have like a cool little like personal story.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you know, that's all part of a lot of the stuff that I think Disney Plus gives us that opportunity to learn some of these stories. Wikipedia has been, I can't tell you how many times I've gone to Wikipedia in my life. But you know, you heard us talk a little bit about it at the top of the show, and we're going to get into it a little bit more. But the Talking Star Wars here is asking this question. This was also on my list for you. The trailer dropped. What's your initial reaction? What are your thoughts on the show? What are you excited about? What are your big predictions? And yeah, where do you come out on the Acolyte era that we're living in now?
I mean, it's a crying shame that there's no white guys in it. That's
You know, if only Star Wars at some point had white guys in it.
There's not a guy with brown hair that I can attach myself to. I don't know what action figure am I gonna buy. You know,
I mean,
no one's gonna want to. I don't have a role to play at recess. I'm so.
I just don't think I can relate to this anymore. I'm gonna have to go. I'll see y'all later.
Star Wars has moved beyond me.
I have to be a girl. No, my like best and worst quality as someone who takes in entertainment is that I get bored very easily. I don't think things are bad easily. I just get bored easily, and like I see a lot of tropes and things like that. And that's true for like every thing that comes out, like every IP, every franchise, and all that. And I think Acolyte is like one of the first things Star Wars has done in a bit where I'm just like, I don't know what this is. This is like completely out of left field. You know, it's cool that they're doing a different time period. Obviously it's like shoehorned in between two very known time periods right now, but like it's like perfectly in between that anything could happen. And I think that's exciting. I'm ready to not know what's going to happen next week because there's no like place they have to get to by the end of it. You know? So yeah, I think it looks incredible. I was in the room last year for Celebration for the High Republic panel when they showed it, and just like it was the crazy. I went to the Taylor Swift Eras tour, and it was comparable to that. Like people were just sticking out, and it was wonderful.
Wow, and you're a big High Republic fan.
Oh yeah.
See, and I'm curious because as Nick and I have readily admitted, we're not hugely into it just simply because you got to draw the line somewhere, and it's not that I started listening to, and I'm about 3/4 of the way through the first book. Charles wrote it. Charles Soule, I believe, wrote it, right? So fantastic book, but man, what I love about it, and I'm hopeful in the show, and again, we'll get into it a little bit more later on the show too, but I'm hopeful that anything can happen. And I think you're right about that. The fact that it's not Skywalker Saga, like we knew Anakin was not going to die. We knew Obi-Wan was not going to die. We knew the Emperor was going to survive. We were pretty sure that Padme might not make it. So in this case, is Carrie Ann Moss going to make it past the first 20 minutes? We don't know. We just don't know. So, and I love that. And I think that's what makes shows like Game of Thrones so good, is that it doesn't matter who's starring, doesn't matter how big of a role they are or actor they are. The fact that anything can happen, and again, it doesn't need to be deaths, but just that their story can go in any direction, we're not held to it, is huge. So, that's where I'm at on that as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's why they market the High Republic as everyone's dying in this, because everyone can die. I think there's not that many. I mean, there's a ton of deaths in the High Republic, but like there's still a billion characters left. But it's more enticing that at any moment, one of these beloved characters, and they're all beloved. That's a big priority for them, is to make every single character really fun. They could just explode, and I think that's really grim, but it's fun.
Yeah, literally explode. They get.
The opening of Light of the Jedi is like half the people in the book die immediately. It's a lot of fun.
Yay!
And we do have a question from the chat. I want to bring this one up because we did talk about Glup Shittos. We have a good friend of the show, Eric Elliott. He asks the question, does Chami appreciate Claude and his contribution to saving the galaxy? This is important for Eric.
I think so. I like his gay cousin from Jedi Survivor a bit more. I think that was the same species, right? The other one. But yeah, he's cool. I'm happy for him. I think he could have done a little bit more, But also, I think if they should have gave him a little bit more responsibility. I think if Claude was there from The Force Awakens, I think Kylo would have been murdered immediately.
Yeah, I mean, let's get it out of the way. You can't fight the power of Claude, right?
Claude doesn't show weakness, and I think that's what's really important. He's a strategist, and he just goes in for the kill. So I do appreciate him.
Get it out of the way.
Yeah,
he's worked smarter, not harder, right?
Yeah.
I have so much appreciation for the fact that he was making repairs on the Falcon without a single hand.
True. I like him as he just kind of slithers by it in the slime.
Yeah, just taking care of things.
I'm afraid to see him move at all, to be honest.
Maybe they pick him up and move him where they need to put it. Okay, Claude, we're going over outside now. You're coming with us.
Yeah. Well, Tommy, we've talked about how you're a comic book writer. We want to get into your work, the things that you've got going on. You have several comic books out. You have a Kickstarter that I know that is going on. I know I read recently, certainly in preparation for you coming on, I will admit that before I was like, oh yeah, I need to get to that. And I never did. But when you were coming, I downloaded and read The Days, which was fantastic. I really enjoyed that.
Good. Yep.
I love I love the connection to, it deals with grief and it talks about real life things that, are key and important. But tell us about your comic book work. Tell us about the stuff you've got out, the Kickstarter, what all you've got going on.
Yeah, this is the part I'm always bad at. So right now we're kickstarting a series called Mustn't Tell. It's a 5 issues, all ages horror story. Right now the Kickstarter is for issues 1 and 2. It's basically it's like a kind of a classic horror story. It's kind of comparable to like Stranger Things, but set in like the mid 2000s. There's 2 best friends named Ryan and Jake, and most of the story is just them trying to kill a monster that's haunting Ryan's house. It's full of like a ton of jokes. I'm kind of calling it like what if Disney made an animated horror movie, because there's a lot of like emotional beats. There's a lot of like things that tie into like mental health and anxiety. It's my first ever Kickstarter, and it's been an absolutely insane experience. It's fully funded, which is cool, but now we're trying to get to the stretch goals and all that, which is a whole nother beast. But yeah, it's on there, and it's a lot of fun. And I think if like people aren't super used to comic books, like maybe they're more of like TV show, movie people, it's a really good spot to get into comics. It's going to be a very like accessible kind of story. You don't need to know anything to go into it. It's just, it is what it is.
I think that's what I loved about the Days, which was, it was, you know, I was worried when I first started reading. I was like, am I gonna have to read 3 or 4 of these? But no, there's a complete story, and I want more. And it was, and I think you're right. I think that gives you a Kickstarter and these sort of independent comics. You know, it's very similar to the independent music scene, right? In that if I like that band, or if I like that writer or that artist, I can become, and I think this is part of your social media presence as well, is people love what you're doing and you engage. We talked a little bit about it before we brought you on, about how Star Wars is doing that now with their fans. They're engaging, and you know, people start to see that. Yeah, I could see, this sounds kind of corny and weird, but I could see your personality in the Days when I read it, and I'm looking forward to seeing that in Mustn't Tell. And I haven't read the Garf story yet, though, but I'm afraid to, because it just seems like it's gonna shatter me.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a priority for me to like make myself accessible. I think that's kind of like the modern day creative person, is someone that I think it's just what we're used to with social media and stuff. Like, I think beyond just your works, like just knowing the person that's creating it is like a bonus kind of thing to the whole experience. Like a lot of the younger generation, who is what I'm aiming a lot of my stories at, they're used to influencers and social media and all that.
Right.
So when I do stories, it's both like a part of me that I'm sharing with you, but also hopefully a really fun story. So it's nice that you noticed that, because it is a big priority to like be accessible for me.
And how long does it take you to develop these stories? And do you prefer writing in this sort of one-off contained story, or do you have visions of wanting to create sort of an ongoing serialized story?
I mean, as far as that goes, it's like I like the one shots because I get to like do a beginning, middle, and end. I think one of the scary things of comics is that they're expected to go on forever. You know,
right.
When writing like a Spider-Man, the goal is to write 1 billion Spider-Man comics.
Right.
And my brain doesn't really work in that kind of way. Like I would get bored myself writing, you know, just the same thing over and over again.
Right.
So when I go into a story, like if I don't have the ending, I don't really like starting it. So something like Mustn't Tell is my first like full series kind of thing. I mean, when I first did the one shots, it was mainly just because when you're starting off as a comic writer, it's really hard to keep artists because they're also starting off as an artist. And writing comics is very easy. Once you have the idea, you do a script in like a few days, whereas the art takes like a month on average. So I did the one shots as kind of like a way to do a begin, a middle, and end, retain the artist, kind of just like tell a full story, say this is what I'm capable of, without having to like worry about like an unresolved cliffhanger or something like that. So I Mustn't Tell. It's still a 5 issues is still relatively short in the comic world, but I got to like kind of expand on the characters while still like knowing what the ending's going to be, and not have that like weird mystery kind of period where things just kind of float through and there's like filler.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I love that you can pour, you know, that individual personality into it. Like we said, whether it's a Garf story, whether it's, you know, whatever it is, like you get to not only put yourself into that art that obviously you've created, but then you get to put it out there in the world. And when we read it and we know your presence, we go, oh yeah, that's Tommy. Like I feel, you know, your presence is imbued into the things that you create. And I think that's really something that's special that artists get to do. And, you know, as someone who's not an artist, I'm jealous of that. So thank you for putting that out into the world. Thank you for being willing to be vulnerable to share stories, whether it's grief, because we don't know, that could be connected to your life. That could be connected to someone personal that you know. And I think those are powerful moments that we love. You know, we had that conversation with Ethan Sachs, and he told the story about his daughter and the difficult times they went through, which led to a story that he told. So that's the power in, you know, certainly narrative art, as we said at the top of the show, and you're a key part and a player in that. So thank you for sharing that with us. More importantly, thank you for hanging out with the two of us tonight. Thank you for coming by, spending some time. This has been a ton of fun. Before we get you out of here, tell everybody where they can find you, how they can follow you, where they can get your comics, read it, all that good stuff.
Yeah. You can follow me on Twitter. It's Tommy_Stella. That's where I'm most active because I can't quit that website. It's a horrible curse. I'm on Instagram at Tommy2_Stella because I wanted to make it more complicated. And then I'm on TikTok as just Tommy Stella no underscores. So I say just figure it out. You'll be fine.
Right. You had a choice. Do you go do you go 3 underscores or none on TikTok? You had like which
sorry, I would let you go no underscores from the get-go. There's always someone who took the straight up name. But I got in on TikTok early enough.
It was that baseball player, wasn't it?
I think it might have been. No. He gets to have. He has a whole like middle part of his name that he gets to have, and like that's sacred. But he still takes all my Google results, which is crying.
That's right.
I'm on there. Find me on there. I make the jokes. Right now, the Kickstarter is the best place to get all of my comics, or at least the more recent ones. I don't have everything on there. If you go on Kickstarter, it's on my Twitter and all that, but. Mustn't Tell on Kickstarter. You can back it there. We got a bunch of cool perks to get. You got like sketches. You can get my old comics as well in physical copy. We're hitting a stretch goal. If we get to 5,250, everyone gets 2 trading cards added onto their order for free. So hopefully we get to that. That'd be really cool. We're only like 200 away, which would be really great.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm those places. Twitter is the main one. Is the takeaway.
Very, very cool. Well, we can't thank you enough for hanging out with us tonight. And to everybody else that's hanging out and watching, thank you also for being here.
Well, that wraps it up for this episode of Around the Galaxy. Thanks to Tommy Stella, and thank you for listening. If you had fun, please like, subscribe, share, rate, and review it. Head on over to our website, theSSWnetwork.com, for more information on joining us as a patron, links to our merch, and more information about the show. Make sure to follow us on all your social media channels at the SSW Network. This show has been copyright 2024 Pete in the Seat Studios, and our music is by the band Apollo's Ghost.